Hey everybody, it's Kyle. So hey, I wanted to talk today a little bit about something that my son and I were having a conversation about recently. My son Zach is 23, 24 years old, and we were having a discussion about marriage. He's engaged and he's going to be getting married, and it kind of led us down a path to something I think might be helpful for you. And I want to be careful with this subject because I think it's kind of interesting and I don't want to get it all jacked up and wrong. So I want to start by saying that we as men, obviously, we love it when we can make our wives happy. But I think way too often we mistakenly think they aren't happy. And I think one of the things that can become a problem for men a lot of times is that we do a lot of things in an effort to make our wives happy. And if we don't feel like they are happy, then we can have a tendency to stop trying because when we don't feel successful at things, sometimes we'll just stop trying, right? And I've heard from many fathers of kids on the autism spectrum who say, you know what, I can't make her happy no matter what I do, so I'm just going to quit trying. And they don't actually say that, but they've done that mentally. They've done that, and so I think I want to cover that a little bit and talk about it because I think that the reason for that is kind of two pronged. And the first is a principle I'll call the 1-2-3 principle, and you may have heard this, but in our lives, and I think this happens all the time, um, if something happens once, then it happens once, and that's no big deal, really, right? It happened once. If something happens twice, that sometimes can seem like a lot, right? In our brains, we say it happened once, okay, it happens once. It happens twice, that's a lot. And then if it happens three times, that can seem like it happens all the time, right? And this is not just us. This is really humanity as a whole. This can be our wives too, right? Um, Often I'll talk to my wife and she'll say, that always happens. And I'll say, really, always? How many times, right? And how many times has it not happened, right? And so we have these conversations. But for men, I think what can happen to us is we can come home from work and our wife is stressed out and because she's had a tough day with the kids and she says, you got to take the kids, they're driving me crazy, I can't take it anymore, right? And when it happens once, that's okay because it's once. When it happens twice, that seems like a lot to us, and that can be over a month time or a year time or 10 years worth of time, right? But then when three times hits, it happens all the time in our minds. So all the time I come home, my wife is out of sorts all the time, right? Now that's not necessarily true, but in our minds, I think we play this game. Once is once, twice is a lot, three times is all the time. And so sometimes I think that can tend to make us think, you know what, I come home, I work hard, I try to make good money, I help out with the kids, and I come home and she's out of sorts. And I just can't make her happy, right? So I say, what can I do? And she says, well, if you got to ask me, you're not helpful, right? I mean, all these kind of things can go around. I've heard that one before, by the way. But anyway, I think um, when that's when that starts to happen to us, we can get in this mode of no matter what I try to do, it just doesn't seem to make my wife happy. So we mentally check out. We say, I'm just going to stop trying because I can't win that battle, right? And so it was interesting to me because, I understand this principle and I've understood it a long time. And there was a time when it did affect me, but once I started to learn a few things, it changed for me. And the reality is, we're making assumptions based on things that happen, and I think those assumptions are wrong. Right? Just because we come home periodically and our wives are out of sorts or they're having a difficult day, doesn't mean we're not making them happy. But at the same time, a lot of times our wives don't help, right? Because, and I'll give you a good example because in preparation for this podcast, I thought, what can I want to ask a group of women who have kids on the autism spectrum, does your husband make you happy? And if so, how do you show him he makes you happy? How do you show him he makes you happy? And so I asked it on an autism Facebook page, which was 90% women, and I got nothing, no answers whatsoever. And I was confused. So I reached out to some other podcasters I know that are women, and I said, hey, does your husband make you happy? And if so, how do you show him that? Well, over and over, I had these women come back and say, I don't understand the question. I thought it was pretty clear. Does your husband make you happy? Yes or no? Right? And if so, how do you show him that he makes you happy? I thought that was about as clear as you could get until I asked my wife. And now keep in mind, I've been married for 27 years. I have a top 1% happy marriage. I love my wife. She loves me. We talk about this a lot. And so I said to her, "Hey, Shelly, I have a question for you." She said, "What's that?" I said, "Do I make you happy?" And she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "How is that not a simple question?" She said, "Well, what are you trying to play a psychological game with me or something?" I said, "No, I just want to know, do I make you happy?" And she said, "Well, I guess." Well, I said, "What do you mean you guess? Do I make you happy? Am I a part of the happiness that's in your life?" And she said, "Well, yeah, you are." I said, "Okay, golly, that sure was hard to get that answer out of her, right?" But then my next question stumped her again. I said, "Well, how do you show me that I make you happy?" And she said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "Well, come up with something. Don't just tell me I don't know. How do you, obviously I make you happy, right?" She said, "Yeah, you make me happy." And I said, "How do you show me that I make you happy?" And she said, "Well, I guess I do things for you." I said, "Any specific things?" Or she's like, "No, I mean, I guess I just do things for you." Well, it became really obvious to me at that point that it was very, very vague, right? I know my wife is happy. I know I'm a part of that. I'm not the whole reason, but I want to know that the things that I do, that she knows they're for her. And they're designed, a lot of the things that I do are designed for my family and for her. And it's really to kind of add to their happiness, right? And so I was curious about this, and it started to remind me of some experiences I had had in the past. And I'm going to tell you a little story about a real good friend of mine who's quite a bit younger than me. He's probably, I'd say 10 or 12 years younger than me. And he's a millionaire. He makes a lot of money. Well, he and I became friends through church, and had some wonderful, great conversations. And again, he's a really good guy. He works hard. He's loving with his family. He's trying to do all the right things. He's a guy I really appreciate. Well, we have a mutual friend that used to live in my neighborhood, and I was at the pool one day. We have this community pool in my neighborhood, and our mutual friend walks up to me and says, "Kyle, I got a question for you." I said, "Okay." He said, "Well, he and our other friend, this millionaire guy, you've been married a long time, haven't you?" I said, "Yeah, I have." And he said, "Well, our millionaire friend and I are having the same struggles with our wives. Have you ever faced this? And what did you do?" And I said, "Oh, that's a great question, right?" I mean, and when you think about it, we all have specific struggles, and I'm not going to go into detail for the very specific struggle they were having. But it was very interesting to me because I asked my buddy, I said, "Well, isn't our friend a millionaire? Well, money's not a problem." He's like, "I know," but he said money isn't the issue, right? For him, a lot of times I think we think that if we can make more money and we can provide more things for our wives, then they'll be happier. And I was getting back the opposite there. Money wasn't the issue, right? But it was still the same exact problems I had faced as a younger man, and they were facing now with their wives. And so I said, "Well, you know what? I've got a process I learned a few years ago out of a Tony Robbins book that I'll share with you." And I kind of created it um, for myself to really focus on my wife and showing her in as many different ways as I could that I loved her. And so I want to share that with you too. And I shared that with my buddy, and he relayed that information to our millionaire buddy. And and no kidding, uh, probably 30 days later, about a month later, I get a call from our mutual millionaire friend, and he says, "Man, this crap is killing it, Kyle. This is fantastic. My wife has never been happier." He said, "And this really isn't costing me anything. It's just applying myself." So I want to share it with you because I think it's an important thing to know. So in Tony Robbins' book, he identifies 6 basic human needs. And he says everything we need in life can boil down to these six basic human needs. And those 6 basic human needs are certainty, and that's the need for security, for comfort, for consistency in our lives. The second one is variety. We want to be surprised periodically, right? We want to know that there's differences and changes and unique experiences in our life. The third one is significance, and that's the need for us to feel important, for us to need to be wanted, and basically just worthy of someone else's love, right? So those are the first three. The second three are love. And love and connection is the need for feeling connected with other human beings, to be a part of something. The fifth one is growth. So we need to have constant development for ourselves, and that's emotionally and intellectually and spiritually, all those kinds of growth. And the final one is contribution, and that's giving back to others beyond ourselves, basically. So let me run through those again for you: certainty, variety, significance, love and connection, growth, and contribution. So those are the six basic human needs. And so when I learned those six basic human needs, I started to think about, how I got those needs filled in my life, right? And I could specifically identify how I did that. But what I wasn't very good about, and what I really wanted to do, is learn how my wife received those, or how she fulfilled those six basic needs, right? And so what I did was I kind of thought, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rank myself, right? I'm going to step outside of myself, and I'm going to say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do I fulfill Shelly's need for certainty, right? What am I giving her that makes her feel certain, right? Certain that I love her, certain that she has security in me as a husband, certainty that I can give her comfort or consistency in her life. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how do I rank? And so I kind of thought, how can she not think anything other than a 8 or 9, right? We've been married a long time. I love her. I tell her that all the time. I has to be high, right? And then I went to variety. How do I surprise her? What do I do to bring spice to her life periodically, right? On a scale of 1 to 10. And I ranked myself, and I went through variety and significance and love and connection and growth and contribute, all those different ideas, or all those different uh, needs, six basic human needs, and identified where I thought I qualified in those, right? And then I did something pretty interesting, and this is where it will get interesting for you, is, and I actually wrote up a form for this, and I suggest you do it too. Write down these six human needs, go back, rewind this, and take some notes. And on a scale of 1 to 10, rank how you think you fit your wife's needs in that area on a scale of 1 to 10. Then go back and put yourself in your wife's mind. Now, this is different than ranking yourself what you think your wife would think. This is putting yourself in your wife's shoes and saying, okay, how do I provide certainty in her life? And on a scale of 1 to 10, right? And when I got in my kind of put myself in my wife's position, the numbers weren't so high. And specifically variety, I do things a standard way. I'm kind of consistent. Consistency is certainty, right? But I don't provide a lot of variety. I don't know that I give her a lot of significance. I give her a lot of love and connection, but it's not necessarily me. It's the need for her feeling connected, not just to me, but to others. How do I help her achieve those needs? And so when I went back and kind of put myself in her mind, the numbers weren't so high. And so what I did was I said, how does she get those, right? And, certainty, I think she does get a lot of that from me. But I think variety, she was looking to other places to get that. And I'll give you a couple of examples. She'd meet with friends and go have lunch and have those conversations that were outside the norm. Maybe your wife goes to a book club, and that provides specific variety in her life. There's different ways there's different things our wives use to fill those needs. Hopefully I'm being clear here. I'm not so sure I am. I'm sure you'll let me know if I'm not. But then I went back and said, how can I put myself and meet those needs at a higher level than what she's using now? Let's say, for instance, your wife is in a book club. It gives her a certain level of certainty that it's going to be every week. And there's variety because she's talking to different people. And on a scale of 1 to 10 for variety, maybe the book club gives her an 8 and you're at a 5, right? So you start asking yourself, how can I provide higher than a 5? I want to be better than a 5. I want to be a 6 in variety for my wife, because I know a 5 is how she ranks the book club, or how I think she does, right? And so I want to write out things that I might be able to do to raise my level of all six of those human needs: certainty, variety, growth, love, contribution, all those things that I know she needs. I want to be a higher level than any other activity she can do. Now, once you start doing this, it's a pretty harsh way to look at yourself, but it's a pretty interesting thing to do because you'll start to look for ways to meet your wife's needs at a higher level in all those six needs. And you'll start creating tasks that you can do on a daily basis. Maybe I've got a book on my bookshelf behind me called 52 Ways to Show Your Wife You Love Her. It's fantastic, right? And it's different things you can do on a day-to-day basis, or actually on a week-to-week basis, to show her. And these are surprises. These are ways that you can show her variety, that you're bringing variety to her life. And so I actually stole ideas right out of that book for variety. And I created what I called a 90-day challenge. And what this was she was going to be the focus of my life for the next 90 days. I still had to go to work. I still had to raise my kids, but she was going to be more important than anything. And as I did that and I wrote this worksheet up and I started trying to meet her needs at a higher level in every single one of those six basic human needs, I started to create activities and things I could do that met at a higher level for 90 days, just 90 days. Now that sounds like a lot for some people, but man, it's really, when you start to do it on a consistent basis for that amount of time, it starts to really magnify. And I think that's why my millionaire buddy called me and said, "Oh my God," after 30 days, his wife was feeling it, right? He was putting her on a pedestal for those 30 days and she was feeling it. And he said that their relationship had dramatically changed because she felt so much more love from him. And obviously, and this is the best part for you dads, she reciprocated, right? And it changed his relationship and it kind of solved some of those issues he was going through. And after 30 days, he saw a tremendous difference. And I can guarantee you, if you'll do this, you will too. Now, here's what's interesting. 90 days is a long time and it's a great amount of time. It's 3 months. And, I actually told a buddy about this one time. I said, "You should try the 90-day challenge." And I kind of walked him through it. He said, "Dang, 90 days is a long time." I said, "Really? This is your wife we're talking about." If 90 days is too long for you, for your wife, man, you got some problems, right? And he said, "You know what? You're right. I should, right? It can't be 30. It can't be 60. Do the 90-day challenge, right? Sit down and think about how you meet your wife's needs in different areas, and then commit to doing things that raise your level, the way you meet her needs in each of those six areas. And I promise you, it's going to be a powerful, tremendous thing. And I'll close with a story that's pretty interesting. A few years ago, well, my wife and I, like I said, have been married 27 years. Every few years, one of our friends gets divorced. And this has been happening since we first got married. Half the marriages are going to end in divorce. And we've really committed to each other. We're going to work at making sure our relationship is strong. And so for us, whenever we hear about one of our friends getting a divorce, we stop and we have a conversation. And our conversation is deep, right? We say, "Can you believe that?" Right? And shoot, I mean, that's hard. And, what about their kids? And we have all these conversations and we talk about the pain and a lot of the things that they're going to have to figure out that are just seem overwhelming to us. And it's always a triggering moment for her and I to recommit to each other. Now, she doesn't know this, she might now, but every time this happens, every couple of years when one of our friends gets divorced, I re-implement this 90-day plan, this 90-day focus on her, make her the most important part. Well, a couple of years ago, we heard about some friends that got divorced. And she came to me and she said, "Kyle, I just heard that our friends got divorced." I'm like, "Oh, shoot, that's horrible." And she said, "I know, I feel bad." She said, "But that's good for us." I said, "What are you talking about?" She says, "It seems like every time we hear about one of our friends getting divorced, it makes our relationship better." And I said, "Really? Why do you think that is?" She said, "It must just be because we talk about it and we discuss the things and we kind of get them all out on the table." And, little did she know that I for the past however many years, I've been implementing this process, this 90-day challenge. And so I want to share that with you. And I want you to know, first of all, your wife has difficulty telling you how you make her happy. My wife does. All wives do. I mean, I couldn't find one wife that could tell me when I said, "Does your husband make you happy?" Well, I don't know. What do you mean? It's just a tricky question for them, right? And I'm not sure why, but I also want you to know that if it feels like you can't make her happy, you gotta be careful there, right? I think you're misreading that. There are ways you make her happy. You may be holding on to those ways that you think you're not. And I want to just suggest to you release them. Number one is release the ways that you think your wife is showing you you're not making her happy, and take the next 90 days, focus entirely on your wife, right? Do this 90-day challenge. Go get Tony Robbins' Unlimited Power book. He lays out the 6 basic human needs. I think it's in that one. It might be in his other one. But anyway, I've told you what they are, the 6 basic human needs. Write them out, right? Decide where you think you fit in meeting her needs in the 6 basic human needs. And then put yourself in her shoes and say, where would she rank you, right? That's kind of harsh, but it's good to step outside yourself and critique yourself, right? You're not going to get better unless you're able to do that. And then once you do, once you rank yourself, decide where she gets fulfillment in those needs from other places, and decide what that number is, and then decide to beat that number. What's going to happen with you and your wife is you're going to see your relationship blossom. It's going to explode into happy. Your wife, I'm telling you right now, it won't take 30 days and she's going to say something's going on, right? When you put her first and try to meet her needs first, she is going to reciprocate, right? And if you feel like she's not showing you she loves you now, she will when you do this, brother. Let me tell you. So hopefully that's helpful. Take the 90-day challenge. Um, the one thing that I would suggest you do today and every day is when you talk to her in the morning or in the after, the first time you see your wife, just say, "Hey, what can I do to make you happy today?" And then do it, right? If she says, "Make me $1 million," that might be a tough one. But if she says that, say, "What can I do right now? I mean, what can I do to help you, or be a better husband, or be a better father? Or what can I do right now? Can I go vacuum my room or wash the dishes?" A lot of these things don't have to be dramatic. And if she tells you, go do it. And what you're going to find is she's going to be much happier. So hopefully that's helpful. This podcast is a little longer than normal, but hopefully it's been helpful. And I can't wait to hear about your results. So let me know how that works. We'll talk to you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.